Chapter 4. The Paper Lantern. After that bitter experience, Jiro became cautious even if he was with Ohama. If she took the way south from the school, he never failed to tear himself away from her hand. However kindly he was offered, he would not allow himself to be carried on anyone's back or shoulders. "He's ashamed. It's his age, you know." She made such an excuse for his wily behavior, like a mother proud of her growing son. Otami sent one person after another for Jiro every 3 days after the incident of the earlobes. Some of them slandered Ohama, saying that she wouldn't allow Jiro to go home because she wanted to hold him back as hostage for rice supply. Such backbiting naturally made her very upset. To part from Jiro would have been unbearable to Ohama, but she couldn't help feeling very uneasy when she imagined how he would be treated at his parental home. These days she did not hesitate to meet the messengers and sometimes repented that she had not returned Jiro earlier. Nevertheless, nothing was more unbearable than to have it rumored that she wouldn't release Jiro on account of her rice supply. It made the unyielding woman extremely angry. So she pushed Jiro eagerly into the hands of the pickup man and wouldn't stop him even if he cried for help. One evening, quite unexpectedly, Otami herself came up to meet Jiro. Ohama was surprised. Jiro was already in the mosquito net, lying on a thin straw mat spread on the floor. Outside the net, mosquitoes were buzzing noisily. Beside him was lying old Yasaku, Ohama's father, also a janitor. He knew a lot of interesting stories, so recently Jiro slept with him more often than with Ohama. The old man told him stories very slowly, yawning at times with a wide open mouth. Then little sticky tears came oozing out of the wrinkled corners of his eyes down into the ears. Jiro liked to change the stream to the other direction with his finger. It was during this favorite finger work that Otami visited to take him back. Jiro recognized who the visitor was and on what business she had come before she stepped into the house. He pretended to be fast asleep, but his little heart was beating hard. He was all ears to his mother. From the veranda their voices came into his ears, mixed with the sound of fans in their hands. "Yes, ma'am," said Ohama. "I've been thinking of sending him back as soon as possible, but—" "Hasn't he said he would like to return yet?" asked Otami. "No, he hasn't," said Ohama. "Master seems to be scared to go out of the gate these days. I feel pity for him." "I see," said Otami. "But don't you think he would understand if I explained well?" "Sorry, but I'm afraid not." "Do you mean that it would be no use?" said the mistress in a stinging tone, even if his own mother, told him directly. "But it can't be helped, ma'am," said Ohama with a pout of lips. Jiro felt a little relieved. "What a terrible nuisance," said Otami regretfully. Her words made him feel a little oppressed. For some time they exchanged no words. It was only the sound of fanning that was hard to him. "I must take him back tonight," said Otami decisively. "I hope he isn't asleep yet, is he?" The sound of the fans stopped and somebody was heard to leave the veranda. Jiro, swallowing his saliva, turned over to Yasaku and snored artificially to indicate how fast asleep he was, though his eyelids were flickering repeatedly in spite of his trick. "How about making it tomorrow, ma'am?" said Ohama. "It's already dark. I feel sorry for master." "It'll be all the same," said Otami. "He won't be scared, I suppose. He's a boy." "But we'd better do such a thing in the daytime, hadn't we?" said Ohama. "Let me take him properly tomorrow morning." "No, you won't," said Otami. "You're going to tell him in such a way as to pull him back, aren't you?" "No, I won't," said Ohama. "You can rely on me. Please wait till tomorrow. I'm sure of it, ma'am." Jiro was sad and snored between sobs. "I doubt it," said Otami, stepping over the threshold into the house. "Dear me, it's you, ma'am." Old Yasaku greeted in a servile manner, sitting up lazily inside the mosquito net. "Glad to see you." The old man, wrinkled all over, wore nothing but a loincloth. "Master, master, it's your mother," he said, shaking Jiro's shoulders. He turned over with a moan, concealing his face from his mother, though his ears were cocked to any sound around. All his efforts, however, ended in vain, for the next moment Otami's hands intruded into the net to drag him out. "Oh, please," said Ohama, "stop treating him so roughly." Jiro sat up on the wooden floor, rubbing his eyes and scratching his arms bitten by mosquitoes. He did not cry, but felt somewhat resigned and resolved. Old Yasaku crept out of the net slowly. Driving away the mosquitoes from Jiro with his fan, the old man said to Otami, "What are you going to do with master?" Soon Yasaku, an old woman and wife to Soon Osaku, an old woman and wife to Yasaku, appeared, following Ohama. Kansaku, Okane, and Otsuru all came out. They all stood silently on the dirt floor, gazing at Otami and Jiro. Ohama was staring at the mistress with blazing eyes. Otami started preaching to Jiro like a strict schoolteacher, but her lengthy sermon hardly reached his ears. During the preaching, his eyes were focused on Ohama. He wanted to read from her look whether she really intended to return him or not, though it didn't give him any hint to him. "Now you understand, eh?" Otami reminded him. He could not help nodding blankly. At that time, he was possibly seeing two enemies of his. One was Otami, his direct enemy, and the other Ohama, the betrayer. His direct enemy said to the betrayer, "I can't take him back naked, Ohama. Put some clothes on him." The betrayer, however, kept staring at his direct enemy with an angry look. Jiro rose up in desperation, put on his sweaty clothes piled up at the corner of the net, and fastened the girdle around his waist by himself. His mother praised him for that. Fighting back the tears, Jiro bent down to look for his footwear. In the meantime, Otami lit the candle of the paper lantern for him. Otami and Jiro stood at the door, but the other members kept silent as if they were watching the curtain lowering at the end of a play. Osaku followed them as far as the gate with her hands at the back. "Goodbye, master," she said, but Jiro did not turn back. Clenching his teeth in tears, he walked after his mother silently. When they were about 100 meters away, his mother said, "Aren't you afraid of the darkness, Jiro?" The boy did not answer. Jiro was walking behind his mother on the left. His straw sandals, a little wet, made queer sounds in the darkness. You can go ahead if you're afraid of it, said Utami. He was not frightened at all, but quickly came ahead as he was told. As he walked just in front of the lantern held by his mother, his body threw the path into darkness, making the rice fields on both sides looming up dimly. The faint light seemed to be reaching his brains directly without passing through his eyes. You hold the lantern, please, if you're going ahead, said Utami and handed it to him. It was an oval lantern with a bowl-shaped handle. It was so big that when he held it like an adult, did its base touch the ground. He had to keep his wrist as high as his breast. The notorious monotonous pattering sound of Jiro's sandals sometimes put Utami under an old illusion that it was coming from an unexpected direction. Then she had to make such an excuse. You walk a little too fast. Follow me again. When they walked some more minutes, Utami said to Jiro, I seem to hear somebody following us. Don't you hear? He stopped to listen, but no sound was heard at all. Let me go ahead again, he said, and started quickly with the lantern. His mood was getting a little cynical before he realized. He walked 5 meters or so when he stopped and waved his lantern up and down. All at once, the lantern went out and it became pitch dark all around. Oh my, you rascal, cried Utami in a trembling voice. Where are you, Jiro? Where? Sitting at the edge of the path, Jiro looked around cautiously. Now was the time, he thought, but he did not make haste. He wanted to run away from his mother, but did not like going back to the school. Once again his mother called him in a ghostly voice, but he did not stir an inch. Close by, her violent breathing was heard. By and by, their eyes grew accustomed to the darkness, and he was found out by Utami, who was looking around hard in a half-sitting position. She hurried to bump into him so hard that he dropped his lantern. What a shameless boy you are! Hand it to me, she said, and snatched the lantern from him. Utami took out a match and it was lit again. Her face looked so stiff in its light. Then a heron gave an eerie hooting. Lighting it again and grabbing his hand, she started with a fast pace. Sometimes he was nearly dragged down, but kept up with his mother, breathing hard. The sound of his sandals was mixed with that of Ohama's wooden clogs to produce resonant echoes on the deserted street. When they entered the village, Utami slowed down and let his hand go. It was a ribbon of small shops and houses. Along the narrow, winding path stood a candy shop, a bean card shop, a barber's, a blacksmith, a druggist's, a fishmonger's, and so on. There were also a number of houses where they've squeezed colza oil, and you could smell the pleasing odor as you passed by. From every house, volumes of smoke were coming out to drive the mosquitoes off. The dense smoke stuck to his sweaty cheeks and made him feel stifled. When they passed the row of the shops and houses, their way was shrouded again with pitch darkness for about 100 meters. It was the grounds of the temple along which the graveyard stretched. Lit by the lantern, the old tombstones looked like lingering smoke. When he passed by that place with Ohama at night, Jiro felt scared, but tonight he was not afraid at all. He felt rather relieved. He knew that if they went by the graveyard and another alley of houses, they would come to their house. Jiro did not want to go farther but stay in a dark place. He came to a halt. "What's the matter?" said Otami as she looked back. She raised her lantern to see Jiro, but he was not seen there. He had already fled behind a big tombstone by the roadside. She called to him repeatedly in a scream, going madly to and fro along the street, but could not step into the dark graveyard. In the meantime, Jiro was watching his mother from behind the big tombstone. Soon she ran into the darkness, swinging the lantern. She was heading for the row of houses bright with electric lamps. Jiro was attacked by a swarm of mosquitoes mercilessly. He was sad and felt at a loss what to do. Now that every acquaintance of his seemed to have left him, he did not know where he should seek shelter. Sitting on the tombstone, he was gazing through the darkness. A long 10 minutes or so passed. "Probably he has fled by now," said Otami to Naokichi, "but look for him anyway." "In this graveyard, man?" he cried. "You don't mean that he can't be so bold?" "But he's reckless. He may be still in here," said Otami. "I doubt that, man," said Naokichi, but went to look for Jiro and soon found him crouching by the tombstone. "Heavens, there he is!" cried Naokichi, about 2 meters away from the street. "Drag him out if you found him. Quick!" shouted Otami. "Don't be silly, master," he said, and grasped him by the hand hesitantly. What happened after that was a matter of which Jiro could not make head or tail at all. He got his hands grabbed by Otami and Naokichi and was dragged out into the street. It was not until he was severely scolded by Otami in the large drawing room that he came to himself and recovered his presence of mind to look around.